In today's video, we're installing a lightweight aluminum master cylinder from Wilwood on my 1971 Chevelle, so stay tuned. So this is the WILWOOD Master Cylinder. It is part number 2608555P. P is for polished. However, it says powder coat chrome, so make a note of that. This is a 1-inch bore master cylinder, which is typically used for a manual brakes, whereas 1 1/8 would be for power brakes. I do have power brakes, but my vacuum, I mean, it's not bad. It's around 13 inches at idle, not too bad, but I wanted a little bit more brake pressure, so we went with the 1-inch. Now, diving right into this, we have the master cylinder that's wrapped up in some paper towel. That's nice. However, just note, it is not screwed down. The lid is not screwed down, so once you pull off this elastic band, that can fall off, which happened to me, and this already fell on the ground. That sucks. We have a pack of fittings. So you can do, different adapters or whatever, so you can run the size of brake lines that you're going to run. Also you need the plugs right there because this master cylinder has ports on both sides. And this is really important. It has a bleeder kit. You need to bench bleed your master cylinder, which we'll talk about later. That is really nice that this comes with that. And of course, you have some instructions. With the cloth removed, we can take a closer look. Pull the lid off. You can see it comes with the boot, which is obviously required. And then the finish. I was under the impression that this was polished aluminum. And as far as I know, at least around 10 years ago, it was. In fact, when I purchased this, I'm pretty sure the description said polished, yet this is a powder coat finish. They call it chrome, but I don't know if you could call it that. But you can see there's some flaking around in this edge right there where obviously they hold the master cylinder while they polish it, or while they powder coat it, but it is definitely a powder coat. And that is a bit disappointing. Obviously, they're doing that for cost reasons, just to, whatever, I'm not even going to get into it. But it is a bit disappointing when I expected a polished finish because I wanted maximum durability. Brake fluid is quite corrosive. It gets on there. I don't want it eating through anything. I want this to be completely chemically resistant. And a powder coat, it is going to be a strong, durable finish, but I would have preferred the polish. So not the end of the world. It's just a little thing that I wish I would have known before I purchased it. Would have been nice if they included an Allen wrench for these little screws in here, because if you don't have a 3/32 Allen wrench, you're out of luck. First thing I need to do is drain the master cylinder, which I'm just going to siphon it, and then we're going to remove all the lines, and maybe I can rebuild a few of them because it's a bit of a spaghetti factory down here. Let's weigh these master cylinders. The original GM one, cast iron, 3.718 kilograms, so that's about 8.2 pounds. And now the Wilwood aluminum, it's so much lighter. That is 1.172 kilograms. That's about 2.6 pounds. So we're dropping what? 5.6 pounds. Pretty good. With everything mocked up, I can now torque these crush washers to 20 to 25 foot-pounds as per the instructions. Now I can remove the master cylinder and bench bleed it. Included with the Wilwood Master Cylinder is this bench bleeding kit, which is fantastic because it is imperative to bench bleed your master cylinder before you put it in the car. The kit includes an assortment of different connectors, so you will have the right size for you. You want it to be tight enough so it doesn't leak, obviously. But because they're plastic, you also don't want to over tighten them. I use ATE Type 200 DOT4 brake fluid, and I use it because of the good temperature properties, 536 degrees boiling point dry, and 388 degrees Fahrenheit wet boiling point, which is fantastic. Make sure you fill it up deep enough that your tubes are well below the surface of your brake fluid. And you can see the bubbles coming through. And you just keep working it until the bubbles go away. That's looking really good. I'm not seeing any bubbles. There we go. I like that better. This is where the fun begins. We have to unhook our bleeder line, hopefully drain the fluid back into the reservoir, and then get our brake lines connected as quickly as possible because this is going to leak everywhere. So, here we go. Stay in there, pal. This little handy dandy ratcheting flare wrench is nice. I feel like I discovered a bit of a design flaw by Wilwood. This hole right there, which allows fluid to transfer from the front to the back and vice versa, it's too low in my opinion. Because look at the fluid level on the front compared to the back. Like, it is super, super low. And that's because vehicles with power brakes, they run the brake booster and the master cylinder gets, installed on an angle like that. So this is a normal angle, but yeah, it pushes all the fluid to the back. I feel like that hole needs to be a good ½ an inch higher. I wish I would have discovered that sooner because I would have drilled my own hole and welded that one up. I am an idiot. For over a day I've been trying to bleed these brakes and I just couldn't get a hard brake pedal. And it turns out I forgot to include this plunger, which comes with the Wilwood kit. And this is required for vehicles that are running brake boosters. Otherwise, your pedal rod is just not going to go deep enough into the plunger and you're not going to get a full bleed. So, idiot. Idiot. I admit I have overlooked a very critical step that I didn't even know was necessary. You need to check the engagement or the measurement between the push rod of your brake booster and the piston of your master cylinder. Now, Wilwood includes this little plunger that you can put in there. If you're not using it, that would be for long push rods. And then if you have a short push rod, you would use this. But that doesn't ensure that you'll have correct engagement. And that's what's happening with me. Now, I've pulled out my brake booster thinking maybe there was a way to adjust it. It turns out, at least for Chevelles and probably old GM muscle cars, there is no way to adjust it. So you have to do it. You have to do some modifications. But first, we need to get a measurement. You can use one of these tools, which honestly I don't think is absolutely necessary, but I got this for like $8 off of Amazon, so I figured I'd try it. But I did figure a way to get a pretty darn accurate measurement. We'll place the tool against the master cylinder in this direction. We'll get that pin nice and centered, and I like to put a little bit of pressure on it, and then tighten that up. We'll take a measurement of this pin, which comes out to about 600 thou. We'll now place the tool on the booster this way. And again, you're going to want to get this nice and centered. A little bit of pressure once again. Tighten it up. Roll it off. We'll measure the pin again, which is about 660 thou, which means this pin is 60 thou too long. So we need to shorten this by at least 60 thou. They want about a 20 thou gap, so that means I'm going to shorten this by about 80 thou. To pull your pin out, all you need to do is just get a pair of pliers or something and give it a good little pull. And just like that, it's out. So that's it all ground down. I have a really nice rounded nose, really happy about that. Though I did go about 10 thou shorter than I wanted to. This damn thing eats it up quick. So I'm about 90 thou shorter than I was before. Now if you go too short, you're going to get slop in the pedal because you're making up that air gap. If you go too, or if it's too long, you could potentially push on the piston and you could have brake drag. So you don't want either. You kind of want to get into a bit of a sweet spot, but I'll put a little bit of grease on it and hopefully that makes up a little bit of the slack. I used an O-ring from a fuel injector to plug that transfer slot, and now I can fill the reservoirs both front and rear. However, I will have to keep an eye on that seal because brake fluid likes to eat rubber seals and it does it badly. So I have to see if this is compatible or not, because if I find that this is eating through, I'm going to have to find a different solution, but it gets me by for now. These crush washers right here, I was getting some seepage under pressure on both sides right here. Wilwood says to torque these to 20 to 25 foot-pounds. I had to torque these ones to 35 foot-pounds just to stop them from leaking. But I got that all good. All the fittings are nice and sealed, no leaks. We can now finish bleeding the brakes. So we got the master cylinder completed. It looks great, though I do wish it was a polished aluminum finish instead of the E-coating, but whatever. We did shave a few pounds, which is fantastic. Bleeding the brakes wasn't without issue. I just couldn't get a brake pedal no matter how many times I bled the brakes. So I pulled the master cylinder, re-bench bled it, and I also made the change to the push rod. I couldn't tell you which one of those made the bigger difference, but either way, I do have a firm brake pedal now, which is awesome. Now the brake pedal is slightly longer and softer than it was before, but that was to be expected since this is a 1-inch master cylinder, whereas the factory one was 1 1/8 inch. So that's normal. But the real test is going to be once I have engine vacuum going through the brake booster, but I can't do that without an engine. So that will be in a future video. So if you want to see that, be sure to subscribe. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button. And as always, thanks for watching.